بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك حجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها قليلا.
Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone slept well. When Jesus Christ warned his followers about what would happen if they decided to follow his message of peace and justice and compassion, he told them that everyone that had any significance in their lives would abandon them. He said, I have not come to bring peace and quiet, but the sword. And he didn't mean literally to go and hack people to pieces, but rather that he was going to divide truth from lies. And he warned his followers, if you follow me, a father will turn against his son, a son against his father, a mother against her daughter, and a daughter against her mother. He said, but I will not leave you orphans. And, you know, in the Western mind, where we think very literally about things, the surface meaning of that, again, to the Western mind as well, I guess we wouldn't lose our parents. But of course, in that part of the world, you know, a small statement such as that could have layers of meanings. And to be an orphan in that part of the world didn't necessarily just mean that you would lose your parents, but your entire family, which is absolutely necessary for your survival physically and your survival spiritually, because the family is everything. It's the beating heart that feeds the whole body. So to be an orphan in that part of the world meant that everything of any importance to you that would help you survive physically and spiritually would be taken from you. And so when Jesus promised that if you follow me and you lose everything of any meaning to you, but I will not leave you orphans, what he was saying in fact was it will be replaced with new things that have been taken from you. You will have new fathers and new mothers and new sisters and brothers and aunts and uncles. There will be new light. And so what he was saying is that we're going to replace this old system with a new system here. And you do not have to worry. If you sacrifice all of these things for my sake or for the sake of justice, I will replace them with even better ones. You know, if I take away this small candle that provides very little light, I'm going to replace it with this much larger one. And so Jesus, making good on his promises, has given us new brothers and new sisters and new lights to follow the truth. I personally can attest to this, particularly as a Christian who decided to befriend the Muslim community and to speak out as a Christian about the beauties that are found within the Islamic religion, within the Islamic culture. Many of my Christian friends and relatives did not like this at all. They still do not like this. And of course, every year at Christmas time, the Christmas cards get thinner and thinner, and the phone calls become less frequent. but they have been replaced now. You see, I have new brothers and new sisters and new aunts and uncles and cousins and all of that. One of them is here today. I met him on a radio program about 6 or 7 years ago that we were both asked to appear on. And we were commenting, I believe, on Israel's bombardment of Gaza. I think this was 2006. And when I heard him, I thought, boy, he really has got it together. Very smart, very articulate, obviously follows the news, knows what he's talking about. And after the program, I contacted the host and I said, could you put me in touch with him? And the host put us in touch with each other, and literally within 5 minutes, again, as I said last night in introducing my much older and wiser brother, Dr. Hisham Talawi, within 5 minutes I realized that I had yet another twin brother that we had been separated from at birth, and we had been rejoined. And he has been like a brother to me since that time. Like me, he is a Christian, but he has a great love and respect for the Islamic people, for the Islamic culture. He has had the honor and the privilege of actually having lived in Iran for a short time, many years ago. And so when he speaks on his weekly radio program, which you can find at The Ugly Truth, if you just look up his name and type in The Ugly Truth, you'll be able to find his archived radio programs, as well as his appearances on Press TV. I'm sure that you will find him to be just as wise and interesting as I have. His name is Mark Dankof. He is a Lutheran pastor in San Antonio, Texas, and he is one of the best speakers, one of the best minds that I have found when it comes to understanding the problems that both our peoples are dealing with today, the Islamic and the Christian peoples. And as I said in introducing this topic tonight, Jesus has not allowed us to remain orphans, so I would ask all of you to give a round of applause to your new brother that you didn't know about for many years, and it is Mark Dankof. Mark, come on up.
Fünfunddreißig Minuten, 35 minutes. All right. I have a voice that tends to carry, so I think you can all hear me. Everything okay? Good. Okay, Mark. See, people in a radio studio can't see me doing this when I'm positioning the watch. My eyesight has declined, though these many decades. I think I can still see the watch from here. Let me open by saying that there are 4 Mark Dankofs visually. The first one is the one you see on press television, where I'm in a business suit and a British regimental striped tie, white dress shirt, all the layout so that I look good on television, what's left of me all these years later. The second Mark Dankof that you see visually is the one you can see at Emmanuel Lutheran Church in San Antonio. You're not likely to be there, but if you look up Emmanuel Lutheran Church of San Antonio, you can see what I look like in a robe. A Lutheran pastor's robe, an ordination stole, and crucifix, and so forth and so on. There's a third Mark Dankof visually, and that's the Mark Dankof that goes to the gym in San Antonio and wears a sweatsuit and looks really old and very tired and very sweaty as I'm trying to maintain what is left of my 57-year-old body. And finally, the fourth Mark Dankof is the one that you're getting visually today, where I'm wearing a golf shirt and blue jeans and walking shoes. The reason for that appearance is I just drove over here to hear Muhammad Al-Asi and Mark Glenn and Hisham Talawi. Didn't know until I was driving over here that somebody actually wanted me to say something briefly from the podium. So this is highly unusual, but you're getting the version of me that's generally seen by my wife and my rescue dogs in San Antonio when I'm lounging around in the house. That's not usually the way I look when I'm trying to speak to people publicly, but that's the way I look today. Let me open then by talking about Psalm 90 and 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 8 from the Christian New Testament. One day with the Lord is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as one day, or as a watch in the night when it is past. That's the only scripture I'm going to quote today, because it deals with something that we agree upon both as Christians and as Muslims. Predominantly Shiite Muslims here this morning, I think with one exception. Dr. Talawi represents the Sunni community. But we all agree about certain things as it relates to the divine and to time. Time produces biological aging. If you see me at the gym, you'll be reminded of that one. Time produces change. At the same time, time produces continuity. Time produces differences in perspective as we get older. And one of the great ironies, and I talked about this in South Africa some days ago, Durban, South Africa, speaking at the Al-Ansar Center to a group of people of the Sunni Islamic faith, and that is how time changes whom we view as friends, sometimes, and whom it is that we view as enemies and adversaries. Now this is important, because I have probably a profile different from that of virtually anyone else in the room, including Mark Glenn. If you look at me now and go back 35 or 40 years ago to when I was young, it's rather amazing that I'm now standing here in Houston, Texas, talking to you, not as a potential or a real adversary, but as a friend. I'm white, I'm German American, I used to be a big-time advocate and activist in the Republican Party. I was on a first-name basis with people you would know. Among many other things, as recently as 1988, I was doing the invocation for George Herbert Walker Bush at the Sheraton Hotel in Seattle when he was running for the presidency of the United States against Michael Dukakis. I was on a Christian 50,000-watt radio station. I was widely known in Seattle. I was the chairman of the 36th Legislative District of the Republican Party, which, if you know King County, Seattle, is the largest and most influential state legislative district in that state. I would later, as recently as 1994, be in a private gathering with George W. Bush at a party. That's when he was running for governor of Texas. I was supporting him in what proved to be my last involvement in anything of that type in the Republican Party, in an attempt, what proved to be a successful attempt, to unseat Governor Ann Richards as governor of this state. But then in 1996, after my second go-around was supporting Pat Buchanan's attempt to get the Republican presidential nomination, I would leave the Republican Party because I'd figured something out. The Republican Party, and if you want to get very technical about it, the Democratic Party in the United States, does not represent you or me. Why? Because you as Muslim people, I as a legitimate Christian person, have a lot in common. A lot more in common than we do in disagreement. The American news media and the Zionist lobby notwithstanding. And when we look at who our mutual adversary is, when we look at who it is that is directing American foreign policy, not to your betterment or mine with the demographics that I represent, and certainly not to the betterment of the world,